The Soviet Union attempted it and spawned a sprawling black market. Zimbabwe printed so much money that it became entirely worthless, prompting people to abandon it completely in favor of alternatives. Venezuela's currency suffered a catastrophic collapse, leading people to embrace US dollars, gold, and even video game currencies. Anything but the official state money. Every single attempt at achieving total monetary control has either spectacularly failed or invariably created thriving parallel economies. But governments, it seems, never truly learn. They believe this time will be different. This time, technology will make it work. And perhaps, tragically, they are right, because digital control is far more encompassing and total than anything that has preceded it. There will be no physical currency to conceal, no gold to bury, just intricate code. And code, crucially, can be rewritten, restricted, and revoked entirely at will. So, what essential lessons should you glean from this critical exposition? Firstly, use cash while you still can. Not for any illicit reasons, but to actively maintain the existing infrastructure that supports it. Because every time you opt for a card instead of cash, you are effectively casting a vote for a cashless future. Secondly, comprehend that this relentless push is not fundamentally about convenience. It is, without a shadow of a doubt, about control. And every single argument presented for the elimination of cash is, in truth, an argument for the erosion of your fundamental freedom. Thirdly, prepare yourselves for a world where digital money becomes the only viable option. Diversify your holdings. Acquire assets that possess intrinsic value outside the confines of the banking system. And most importantly of all, recognize precisely what is being taken from you. Because once cash is irrevocably gone, it will not be returning. So, what will truly transpire when cash is completely outlawed? When every single transaction demands explicit permission from a bank, a payment processor, or the government itself, you will irrevocably lose the fundamental ability to transact privately. Every donation you make will be tracked. Every subscription you hold will be recorded. Every purchase you complete will be meticulously analyzed. And all that vast data will be meticulously used to construct an exhaustive profile of you. What you believe, what you value, what your likely future actions might be. And when the time inevitably arrives, when the government or a powerful corporation decides you have somehow stepped out of line, they will not bother with arrest warrants. They will not initiate a prosecution. They will simply turn off your money. Your account will be frozen instantly. Your cards will cease to function. You will be unable to purchase food. You will be unable to pay your rent. You will be economically erased. And because it is all digital, this catastrophic event will unfold instantaneously. No warning, no opportunity for appeal, just gone. And what recourse will you possibly have then? In a world where cash exists, you would retain options. You could utilize physical money. You could engage in barter. You could, at the very least, survive whilst you fought back against the injustice. But in a cashless world, you will be utterly helpless. You will be completely dependent on the very system that has just unilaterally cut you off. That is the future they are meticulously constructing. Not necessarily because they harbor personal malice towards you, but simply because control is immensely profitable. And a population that is utterly dependent on permission for every single transaction is a population that, they believe, will never dare to rebel. History offers crucial lessons regarding what happens when governments gain absolute control over money. If you held more than 100,000 euros in the bank, they simply took a portion of it, erasing it from your balance to recapitalize the struggling banks. This action was deemed legal because the banks were considered private institutions, and depositors, chillingly, were reclassified as mere creditors. And the truly terrifying aspect is this. This is now official policy. The G20, the influential group comprising the world's largest economies, has formally agreed that bail-ins are the preferred method for managing future banking crises, fundamentally replacing taxpayer-funded bailouts. Bail-ins mean taking your money. And in a completely cashless society, there is no conceivable way to circumvent this. You cannot withdraw your savings and squirrel them away safely, because there is nowhere to withdraw them to. Your money exists solely within the digital system, and that very system can seize it whenever it deems necessary. Notice the insidious pattern that emerges. First, eliminate cash. Then, force everyone into mandatory digital banking. Next, Introduce programmable currency with embedded rules. Subsequently, implement negative interest rates. Finally, legalize bail-ins, effectively allowing banks to seize your funds. Every single step in this progression systematically removes your options. Every step progressively increases control over your finances and, by extension, your life. And every step is justified with seemingly reasonable language: efficiency, security, modernization. But the ultimate outcome is a system where you effectively own nothing, not even your own money, and where everything you do is visible, meticulously tracked, and completely controllable. This is not some far-fetched conspiracy theory. This is overtly stated policy. You can read the white papers published by central banks. You can watch the speeches delivered by high-ranking officials. They are not attempting to hide it. They are simply banking on your inattention and apathy. You might be prevented from purchasing plane tickets, booking high-speed trains, or enrolling your children in private schools. Your money still technically exists, but you are effectively forbidden from using it in ways you deem fit. That is the dystopian future promised by CBDCs, and it is undoubtedly making its way to the West. They will simply cloak it under different, more palatable terminology: fraud prevention, risk management, protecting the vulnerable. But the underlying mechanics will remain identical. Your money will only function contingent on your compliance. Negative interest rates represent another critical piece of this intricate puzzle. In a world where physical cash is readily available, negative interest rates are largely unworkable. If a bank were to charge you for the privilege of holding your money, you would simply withdraw it and safeguard it under your mattress. But in an entirely cashless world, this option vanishes. If cash is deemed illegal or made unavailable, you are forcibly compelled to keep your money within the banking system. And if the bank then imposes negative interest, slowly but steadily draining your account, you have absolutely no escape route. You are left with two choices: either spend it, which is precisely what the government desires, or passively watch it gradually evaporate. This scenario is already unfolding in parts of Europe, and it will inevitably spread, because in a world drowning in spiraling sovereign debt, governments desperately need to force their populations to spend rather than save. And negative interest rates are a powerful tool to achieve this, but they only function effectively if cash is first eliminated. Bank bail-ins represent the ultimate nightmare scenario. In 2013, Cyprus was confronted with a severe banking crisis. Instead of the usual government bailout funded by taxpayers, they implemented something unprecedented. They directly seized money from depositors' accounts. This is precisely why every modern government appears so desperate to eliminate cash, for cash represents the final bulwark before the complete reliance on barter. And barter, in its rawest form, is freedom. Now, let us return to the present day. Central Bank Digital Currencies, CBDCs, are currently being researched or piloted by virtually every major economy. China is already actively rolling out its digital yuan. Europe is progressing towards a digital euro. The Federal Reserve in the United States is meticulously studying a digital dollar. And across the board, their public pronouncements echo the same rhetoric: that CBDCs will be more efficient, more secure, and represent the inevitable future of money. But here is what they conspicuously omit to mention. CBDCs are inherently programmable. Unlike physical cash, which simply exists and serves its purpose, digital currency can be meticulously coded with specific rules and conditions. It can be assigned an expiration date, thereby compelling you to spend it or forfeit its value. It can be rigorously restricted to certain categories of purchases, perhaps no alcohol, no firearms, no meat, or whatever parameters the government unilaterally decides. It can be geo-fenced, meaning you can only spend it within predefined geographical areas. It can be instantly frozen if you are flagged for any reason whatsoever. And every single transaction, without exception, will be permanently recorded in a government database for all time. This is not mere speculation. These are explicit features that central banks are actively discussing and exploring. China is already implementing this reality. The digital yuan meticulously tracks every purchase and is seamlessly integrated with the nation's social credit system. If your social credit score falls below a certain threshold, your money simply ceases to function for specific purposes. It has been attempted before, and each instance has been unequivocally about control. In the Soviet Union, cash was heavily restricted. Large transactions necessitated official permits, as the state harbored an unyielding desire to track and control every facet of its economy. And yet, despite these stringent restrictions, a vast black market flourished, simply because people desperately needed a means to transact outside the heavily controlled official system. The Soviet economy effectively operated on two distinct levels: the official economy, meticulously tracked and controlled, and the expansive black market, where genuine goods and services were exchanged using cash, barter, and favors. The government loathed it, but they were ultimately powerless to stop it. For as long as physical goods and physical cash existed, people invariably found ways to circumvent the system. The stark lesson here is clear: eliminating cash does not eradicate the underground economy. It merely criminalizes ordinary people attempting to survive. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia in the 1990s witnessed an almost instantaneous reversion to a barter economy. The ruble became virtually worthless. Hyperinflation obliterated people's savings, forcing them to abandon money entirely and revert to the oldest system of all: trading goods for goods. Factories compensated workers with products rather than wages. A car factory worker might be paid in car parts, whilst a teacher might receive payment in food. People traded what they possessed for what they desperately needed. It was undoubtedly inefficient and chaotic, but critically, it functioned because it did not depend on a functioning currency. This stark reality emerges when trust in money fundamentally collapses. People revert to tangible value, and governments universally despise this outcome because barter transactions are invisible. They cannot be taxed, tracked, or controlled. Because the objective was never genuinely about efficiency, the goal was to forcibly shepherd people into the formal digital banking system, where every single transaction could be meticulously tracked. India sought to dismantle its vast informal economy, to expose untaxed transactions and under-the-table deals. And the most effective method to achieve this was to systematically eliminate cash. Did it succeed as claimed? Not in the fight against corruption. The wealthy quickly discovered myriad ways to convert their illicit cash through proxies and shell companies. But ordinary people suffered immensely, and the government attained precisely what it desired: enhanced surveillance, more data, and ultimately, greater control over its citizens' finances. France's cash limits, while perhaps more subtle, are no less insidious in their implications. You are legally prohibited from paying more than 1,000 euros in cash for any single transaction. Should you wish to purchase a second-hand car, pay rent, acquire jewelry, or engage in any transaction exceeding that threshold, it must be conducted through a bank. The stated justification remains consistent: combating money laundering and curbing tax evasion. But pause to consider the genuine ramifications of this policy. It compels you to leave an undeniable paper trail for every significant financial decision you make. The government gains knowledge of when you buy, what you buy, and from whom you purchase it. And crucially, if they disapprove, they possess the power to intervene and stop it. Because once a transaction is digital, it can be blocked. Your account can be frozen without warning. Your payment can be unilaterally reversed, leaving you with absolutely no alternative. For cash, your last reliable fallback, is rendered illegal for that particular purchase. Now, let us delve into history, for this war on cash is far from a novel concept. In 2020, Sweden experienced a significant technical outage that crippled card payment systems nationwide. Grocery stores, petrol stations, pharmacies, all were paralyzed. Individuals with ample funds in their accounts found themselves unable to access their money. This was not a catastrophic natural disaster. It was a routine technical failure. Yet, it starkly exposed the inherent fragility of a system that has systematically eliminated its fundamental backup. For that is precisely what cash is: a resilient backup, a reliable means to transact when all other digital systems inevitably fail. Sweden relinquished this vital safety net in the name of convenience. And now, they are effectively trapped within its digital confines. India's case presents an even more brutal illustration. In November 2016, Prime Minister Modi appeared on national television to announce that 501,000 rupee notes, which collectively constituted a staggering 86% of the cash in circulation, would cease to be legal tender with immediate effect. Citizens were granted a mere few weeks to deposit their old notes in banks and exchange them for new ones. The official justification cited was the fight against corruption, tax evasion, and counterfeit money. The true underlying motive, however, was control. Overnight, millions of people who operated predominantly within the cash economy, farmers, small vendors, daily laborers, discovered their hard-earned money rendered worthless. The queues outside banks stretched for miles, a truly heartbreaking sight. People, literally, died whilst waiting in those lines. Elderly and sick individuals stood for hours in intense heat, desperately attempting to exchange what represented their entire life savings. Small businesses collapsed because they could not make change or process payments. Crops rotted in the fields as farmers were unable to pay their workers. It was nothing short of economic chaos. Yet, the government audaciously labeled it progress. You require no bank account, no smartphone, no internet connection. You are not obliged to prove your identity or provide an explanation for your purchase. It is anonymous, immediate, and final. No one can unilaterally freeze it, reverse it, or track its movement. This inherent autonomy is precisely why governments often view cash with such disdain, for cash embodies freedom itself. Every authoritarian regime throughout history has grasped a fundamental truth. If you seek to control a populace, you must first control their money. And you cannot control what remains unseen. Hence, the initial step is invariably the same: eliminate cash. Force every individual into a system where every transaction is visible, every purchase meticulously recorded, and every financial decision subject to monitoring, restriction, or even punishment. Sweden is frequently presented as the epitome of this model, a modern, progressive, entirely cashless society. But let us examine the true implications of this designation. In many Swedish cities, paying for public transportation with cash is no longer an option. Homeless individuals begging on the streets have adapted by carrying portable card readers, simply because very few people now carry physical coins to offer. Churches, too, have replaced traditional collection plates with card readers during services. Consequently, an entire generation of Swedes has grown up with virtually no experience handling physical money. They genuinely fail to comprehend why anyone would even desire it. However, what they also fail to grasp is their profound and complete dependence on a system over which they exert no control whatsoever. If your bank unilaterally freezes your account, you are instantly unable to purchase food. If a widespread power outage occurs, you are rendered incapable of paying for anything. Should the entire payment network collapse, the nation's economy grinds to a halt. Cash is disappearing, not by accident, nor merely for convenience, but by deliberate design. In Sweden, for instance, a staggering 98% of transactions are now cashless, with the majority of retail establishments no longer even accepting physical currency. Elsewhere, in India, the government orchestrated a dramatic move in 2016, invalidating 86% of its circulating currency overnight. This unprecedented act left hundreds of millions of people scrambling for digital alternatives, or facing the grim prospect of their life savings becoming utterly worthless paper. The trend is global. In France, it is illegal to conduct any cash transaction exceeding €1,000. Italy enforces a similar restriction. Greece, Spain, and Belgium all have statutory limits on the amount of cash one can legally use. And consider the United States. Attempt to deposit a mere $10,000 in cash at your bank, and you will swiftly find yourself reported to the authorities, investigated for potential money laundering, and treated with suspicion, as if engaging in a criminal act for simply using legal tender. The war on cash, therefore, is not a distant threat. It is already well underway, unfolding across the globe. And if you genuinely believe this push is solely about apprehending criminals or streamlining payment processes, you are fundamentally misinterpreting the true agenda. Because once cash is completely eradicated and every single transaction you undertake becomes digital, meticulously tracked, and centrally controlled, you are no longer truly economically free. Instead, your financial interactions become permission-based, and critically, that permission can be arbitrarily revoked. Let us first understand what cash fundamentally represents. It is the sole form of money that is genuinely and unequivocally yours. When you hold a £20 note, You own it outright. You possess the inherent freedom to spend it without needing anyone's approval or consent. And the profound freedoms it represented, privacy, independence, the crucial ability to transact without asking for permission, will vanish along with it. The war on cash is, at its core, a war on you. And it is being won, insidiously, one transaction at a time. History, whilst not repeating itself precisely, offers its warnings in a loud and clear voice. Every society that has systematically eliminated economic freedom has eventually, inevitably, eliminated every other freedom too. And it has always, without fail, commenced in precisely the same manner, by asserting control over the people's money. If this perspective has offered you new insights, then please do hit subscribe. History holds the answers. I will show you where to look.